talk to my mum much about things that she has absolutely no interest in, because I've been taught a lot of social rules and, like, you know, what's appropriate conversation and that kind of thing. However, I do still talk to her a lot about autism because she has an interest in that herself. However, I think I can still sometimes go overboard even on that. For example, when I was on holiday, I was still talking to her about autism quite a bit, and she told me that she'd like a rest from talking about it, because we were on holiday. However, I wanted to continue talking about it. I thought it was a really interesting subject. Why should I stop talking about it? That's what I thought. And sometimes I have actually spoken to my sisters about autism, and they've gotten extremely bored by it. And they've said, like, oh, look, I don't want to talk about autism. I just don't want to talk about it. So that's very bold. I think it's important to learn. It's important for people with autism to learn that other people can get bored, and you do need to stop sometimes, not to get people too bored of what you're saying. However, it is also important to remember that those who have autism find it extremely difficult to socialise, and they often find everyday conversations boring. They may have the same problem with everyday conversations that you'd have with their conversations. Because we need to work extra hard to socialise.
I remember when Alex was about 6 or 7 and he came home for home-based ABA therapy. I remember the consultant saying to me, Sylvia, you must stop answering his repetitive questions. Now, if I'm really honest, I found Alex's repetitive questions exhausting. He would ask the same question for hours sometimes, if someone let him. And the thing is that, if I didn't answer his question, he would get really upset, and so the tendency is to keep on answering the question. But they said to me, the consultant and different experts said, you've got to let him ask the question 4 times, and then you've got to say, right, Alex, we're not having any more of that question, that's enough now. And whatever happens, if he got upset, you just had to wait for it to pass. And it was really, really difficult. But I did do this, and as time went on, Alex can still be repetitive and can still talk about the same things, but things got a lot better.
I kept on asking the same questions again and again, just because I liked hearing the answers. It made me feel really happy and excited. I felt extremely stressed whenever my mum would say to me, okay, I've already answered that question. That would really just make me extremely stressed and anxious. I wanted to continue to talk about it. I think the repetitive questions was like a type of stim for me. I like to hear the answers over and over and over and over and over again. I won't say that over and over again. I still ask questions a lot, sometimes even the same questions, but I usually take a few days. There's usually a few days in between each question. I also like to talk about a subject like autism a lot. I'm doing public speaking about autism, which has actually become my job now. That's really been an advantage for me because I don't have to worry about people getting bored with what I'm saying, because I'm basically there to talk about autism. That's what I'm there to do, and that's what I'm paid to do. Also, when I'm at home, I often talk to my mum about my public speaking. I'm glad, however, that I was taught to not talk too much, because I don't want to bore people.
I think it's really hard for someone with autism to understand that when they're talking about their favourite subject for hours, that the other person is bored. And one of the reasons why it's hard is because a person with autism, they say, doesn't have a theory of mind, which is the ability to put yourself in somebody else's place. We do it all the time. You're talking to someone, you see them looking slightly bored, you go, ooh, I must be boring them. And we do this social negotiation all the time. A person with autism finds this, not only do they find it hard to read somebody's facial expressions, but they also find it really hard to put themselves into somebody else's position, to even understand that somebody else has different thoughts from themselves. So if they're finding this subject really exciting, then of course the other person's finding it exciting. So it's not selfishness to keep on wanting to go with this subject. However, it is important for a child with autism to learn that their subject might bore somebody else. And one of the things we used to do with Alex was we used to use a role play. So we would have two people acting out the part. One person would be talking about their favourite subject, and we would maybe make it Thomas the Tank Engine, something relevant. And the other person would be making obvious signs of boredom, like, oh, or, oh, or, oh, like this. And we would film them, and then we would play the video to Alex, and we would say, right, Alex, every time you see the other person looking bored, you have to stop the video, or do hold up a flag, or, show that you've seen it. Alex used to think this was hilarious. And it was a really, really good way of Alex learning to recognise that people can get bored, because instead of expecting him to put himself in somebody else's position, he could see the two positions. And I think Alex has learned as a theoretical idea that other people get bored, but he still doesn't understand it. He's learned it as a rule. And I think that really helps him in terms of recognising, okay, I don't want to bore people, so I will try and look for signs. Sometimes he manages to see the signs, other times he doesn't. Should you just say, yes, that's boring, or please stop? Well, Alex's sisters do that. On holiday, I said to Alex, Alex, we're on holiday, I'm having a rest from Alex Lowery Speaks About Autism, so we're not going to talk about your speeches for the whole holiday because mentally I needed a break. And Alex really didn't like it. He accepted it, and I think that was partly because he was taught that people do have other thoughts and feelings and do get bored, and he understands that as a theory now.
Helped. If it wasn't for the help that I've received in this area, I think I may have really, really bored people. I know what the signs of boredom are now, however, I still don't always recognise them. But at least when people are honest with me, it helps me to understand what they are saying.